A little bit about me. I'm not a tester, I'm not a developer. My perspectives are slightly different. I worked as an ethical hacker for a couple of years, so most of my perspective out of this is from my time basically hacking companies for a living. What I'm not is definitely not someone who's done a talk on testing before, so I'm going to try give you my perspective and see how that applies in your world and if it's useful. So the whole thing I'm hoping you'll get out of tonight is the attacker's mindset. When I walk into a situation, I probably look at it in a different way to most people. It's probably people think I'm malicious or evil because I think of things differently. And hopefully when you leave today, you'll also think of things in a similar way. I'm not seeing a lot of laptops, so that's probably going to be very good for my demo, because when you have a live demo, especially when it involves Wi-Fi, it can go horribly wrong if people are doing bad things at the same time. So if you want to win a prize, there's a couple of prizes. One is for being able to hack this lovely, fully patched, up-to-date Mac, iMac here, the latest operating system with antivirus. If you can hack that before we get to the stop point, you'll win a prize. Otherwise, the best question also wins a prize. The prize is, if you're, it's a Jumo pack of good stuff, apparently. As I mentioned, I'm not a tester, and I'm going to jump between personas. There's going to be stuff in the red, which is Mr. Hackman, that's what the hacker's thinking, the hacker's perspective. And then the blue stuff is the tester's perspective of somebody who's on the defender side. Literally in IT security, you've got teams called red teams, which are the attackers, and blue teams, from the old classic red versus blue. It's actually a real job description these days. So I'll try and give you context by highlighting in blue or red what mindset I'm talking about. The one rule is if you are hacking along, this is a single environment. It's if you start breaking things, everybody's going to have a bad time. So rather, if you log into a certain device, don't go change the admin password for everyone else. Don't shut down the computer. It's obviously it's going to ruin the experience for everyone else. Hopefully nobody's going to get that far, and then it'll be very nice and smooth. And then just there's that stop point in the presentation where I'm going to call it, because things will move quite quickly from that point, and it's easier to show and explain at that point if someone else isn't trying to do stuff at the same time. So without further ado, we've got this lovely machine, so I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. Feel free to put up your hand and ask questions at any point in time as well. But if you look at this machine and you think of it as an attacker, you go, well, I need to attack this machine. But you're not connected to it. So how would you attack a machine if you're not physically on the same network as it? Any guesses?
It's the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, Wi-Fi. Okay, so that's the easy one. So attackers saying, hey, I'm doing some recon. Do you have any interesting information well, anything I might find interesting? You've got to stay sharp, otherwise you might catch one. So in this case, if you know the technology, if you're writing an application or you're writing a system, it's going to be exposed, and people are going to be able to gather information about it. So the more information you expose, the more information that attacker can use to try and take your application, to try and break your application. Hacking, in my opinion, is just essentially taking something, working out how it works, making it work in a way that it's not meant to work, and then making it work in a way you want it to work. Easy steps to hacking, but from a very high level. So, if this is the machine, who can tell me what the Wi-Fi would be that it's on?
It's on your name and then the password's on the screen.
So my name, Craig? No. So there's a theme, yeah. So the theme is Big Bang Theory. With most applications, you'll find this general theme. It's a company ethos or programming standard. There'll be a theme. So this one, the theme is Big Bang Theory. So there's anybody who's watched the series will recognize that's Sheldon Cooper, a character from the series, and there's a Wi-Fi called Sheldon Cooper _ Wi-Fi. And to get onto it, a little bit of research, and you'll know he has a catchphrase, and it also happens to be on the screen at the moment as well. So it's very easy to get onto the Wi-Fi. Anybody who's hacking along or playing along? There's just the two of you. Well, a couple of people in the back. So you should be able to get onto the Wi-Fi, and that's not too hard. But the general idea behind that is when you're busy writing your application, there are a couple of different ways to write it. You're going to write your application completely from scratch, or you're going to use known frameworks or systems or procedures that somebody else has written, or common frameworks. With Wi-Fi, it's exactly the same way. So an attacker is going to look for the easiest way to break in. With this specific type of Wi-Fi, you can try and capture the handshake when someone authenticates, and then brute force that, and you can eventually get the password through that, or you can just do a bit of research. There was an American politician, Sarah Palin, who famously got hacked because she was using Yahoo for her email, and her security reset questions were all things like, what school did you go to, what's your daughter's name, and that was all on her Wikipedia page. So we've got to try and realize that any information you provide could potentially help an attacker. So verbose error messages are also one of those things that give information. If you're a hacker and you go to a web page and you type in, you look at the username and password logon and you type in a username, and the message that comes back says invalid user, who thinks that's a bad thing? A couple of people. Because you've now, the attacker can infer that actually it knows you can work out what's a valid username and what's not a valid username. Same with the password. Basically you can then iterate through those username possibilities and try work out what the password is. Brute force testing. Who does any checks for their authentication for their application to see is there anybody trying to brute force my application? Every time I deploy a new build, do I test that? Most people test it once and they assume it's always going to work thereafter. It's one of those things that doesn't get tested. And also, if you were trying to hack this Wi-Fi, you might, and somebody was actually monitoring the logs and seeing that somebody's trying different passwords. Was that the first password you tried?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm sure someone else got it wrong. If you see a whole bunch of different errors going at a certain velocity, you say, well, people aren't getting their username and password wrong this often. Should I be testing that we've got logs when something's going wrong and somebody's trying to attack my application or try to do something very quickly? If somebody's buying coffee mugs from my web application, but they're buying 10,000 of them in a minute, that sort of velocity isn't usual for the application. Do you have any parameter testing to say what is normal and what is potentially malicious behavior? That's the thinking. And a classic one, which I come across quite often, is the comments in the codes, which is really useful. Some developers I know believe the ethos, if it was hard to write, it should be hard to read. Other developers are much friendlier and they leave comments, and those comments make it into production. And there'll be comments like, couldn't remember how to fix the login, we'll fix later. Those little gems exist. There's current big corporates, like corporations that have comments like that in their products. We'll be having a look at a bug in a web application a little bit later, which will, something that you wouldn't expect at all from a largest company. So oversharing. And then anybody recognize that little symbol in the bottom left corner? Tangent, yeah. I tend to go off on tangents, so if you see that, it's likely I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. Anybody know what fuzzing is? This sits firmly. You got onto the Wi-Fi wall? No? Question? Yes. Oh, great. So that should sit firmly in the area of testing, because fuzzing is just it's used more for attackers, but essentially it's just throwing lots and lots of different characters, combinations, any bit of input at your application to see what's going to go wrong. So you might have catered for certain input, and you'll gracefully handle all that different input out of a million times. You'll handle it perfectly. But that one time where you haven't catered for a certain scenario and your application breaks, that's the first way in for an attacker. So for for example, if you've got an input field that will accept any character and parse it, make sure that there's no bad characters, and it works perfectly, but you haven't checked for length, and somebody puts in something that's way too long and your application breaks, that's an avenue in for an attacker to start playing with your application. So at the bottom here is my attempt to walk you through the story of us becoming elite hackers, black hat hackers, and at the bottom there, it's probably not that easy to read, but step one, get on the Wi-Fi, and we're going to walk our way from left to right all the way till we manage to take over this machine. If you do manage to take over the machine, you can fire up the WordPad and write your name, and that's how you'll get the prize. But we'll see if somebody gets control of the machine. It should be nice and interactive. So, anybody know what are you going to do once you're on that Wi-Fi? Yeah, you're going to try work out what else is on there. So from testing, normally unit testing is very specific. You're going to test one small thing. You're going to do overall testing, but you might not be testing connected systems. And I'm trying to use the Wi-Fi as a metaphor for connected systems. So hacker guy gets onto the Wi-Fi. First thing he's going to do is have a look to see what else he can get onto. Often people have an outer layer of defense or something to protect them, but post that they don't check. Classic example is a bank with fantastic security on its web application. There's no ways you're going to get any bad input or malicious code into any of their input systems. However, they accept transfers from a bank that doesn't do such a good job. And they have transaction comments in the transactions that come from that other bank. They trust that other bank. They assume the other bank is doing something good. And unfortunately, when the transfer comes through, malicious code can be attached as a comment. There was an actual situation where that happened, where they did a manual deposit with the code written as on the deposit slip with the code, and the person capturing that deposit manually typed it in because all their online systems did information parsing, but the teller system, they assumed the teller. It wasn't an attack scenario they had thought of at that time. So yeah, we're going to connect to the Wi-Fi and have a look around. And I'm going to be diving to this machine every now and then and just doing as I say. So we're going to look around and we're going to find Sheldon Cooper Wi-Fi. And the password we're going to show you is on the screen right now. Good timing. Is Bazinga. And magically we should end up on the Wi-Fi. So I'm not sure, most developers don't do a lot of networking, so this might be a little bit in detail for some people, but there's a tool called Nmap, which is basically a connectivity tool which will allow you to scan different hosts to see what ports are exposed. We go back to the slide quickly. It'll show you what systems are on that network, on that Wi-Fi network, what ports or services they've got exposed. A lot of people, when they do testing, they don't look at what internal APIs are exposed as well, what backend servers. You'll find there was an article a couple of days ago that all these Hadoop big data clusters, there's I think it was something ridiculous like 500 terabytes of data just exposed without passwords. So if you build a massively secure, our classic one is Mongo databases don't generally have passwords. There's also a lot of data exposed on the internet. People set up their lovely application, they test it, they make sure all their security is great, but they don't consider the other systems that are connected to it. So they secure the front end, they don't secure the API necessarily, or they don't do their input testing on the API, because they trust that the network guys are going to make sure that the API is never exposed, which doesn't always work out. As much as the operational and network guys like to blame the developers when things go wrong, often it's also the networking guys. The general idea is to trust no one there. So consider different perspectives when testing. Are there other plausible scenarios I should consider? Mention that. In the network stack, are there other services exposed? So when you fire up your instance and you only expose your web application, are you actually not accidentally exposing management pages or anything else along those lines? And yeah, is your database only access only to your instance of your data? So a lot of mistakes we see is when if you hack into a web application and the application shows the weather, but it also has connection to the connectivity to a database that stores the customer information or the banking information. People don't test for that. They don't see that they've only got access to what they should have access, and someone from the database management team hasn't made a mistake. A classic tangent of excessive privileges is before the Soccer World Cup, there was an airline management company in a country that had a Soccer World Cup. I won't specify which country, but they said, well, we manage flights for airplanes, we manage passengers, we don't manage IT security, so we're worried about this, so let's get some people in to test. So the web application was fairly horrible, and there was something called SQL injection, and you could interact with the database. And that database on their website showed the flights, what flights were flying, what the current status of that. That in everybody's mind only needs to ever read data. But obviously, when you're setting up, you create an account that has access to the database, and they create an account on and use it on their actual web server that allowed them to update. So literally in that exercise, we updated a destination, Walla Walla, and we went to the airport, and so we updated it on the web server, which went back into the database, which then popped it up on those big boards at, I was about to say, Tango, give away the country, but, and we put a dot on there. We took a nice photo, but we could have changed, instead of delayed, like missing, we could have been a little more creative, but we were working for them, so yeah, you want to stay friends with the people you're working for. So bit of a tangent, but it's one of those things that people don't necessarily consider is, I've got access, great. Should I have access? Do I have access somewhere else that I shouldn't have? I don't know if that's ever considered. Everybody just wants it to work, and once it works, they're happy. Non-functional stuff like security and security testing is less common. So in the bottom here it says, look around the Wi-Fi, what devices are found? Has anybody managed to look around on the network? I know Nmap is not necessarily in everybody's toolkit. What did you find?
So I actually took Wireshark before I
Oh.
I found top 50 was open.
Yeah.
Switches up.
Yeah, there's something on an IP address 192.168.0.50 is talking, and that happens to be the wireless router. If you're in America, you can't say router, you have to say router. I did a fair bit of training to people in the States, and we had to change the way we said route. But yeah, so .50 is one of the ones. This is actually nice when 100 is also up. Okay, yeah. So actually, you found the two most important ones. This guy is 100, and the router is 50. You have a look around, you'll find those on there. It's also interesting because people connect with their phones to the Wi-Fi and their machines, and then you get people trying to hack each other. They're like, oh, I found a MacBook, and everybody's using separate MacBooks. So those are the two ones that any other IP address at the moment, don't hack it, you might find somebody else's machine. So, so we're just going to use Nmap, if I can type. Mine is open, so we're only looking for open ports, and I'm going to be very specific because I don't want to find other people's machines. So 100 and say 50, and it's going to do a quick scan and see what services are exposed. I should have turned off checking for DNS. So it's trying to resolve names. Yeah, it's Nmap's one of my favorite testing tools because it gives you feedback whenever you're like, is it doing anything? You hit any key and it tells you what it's doing. That's good user feedback. Comes back and you can see there are a whole bunch of bits and pieces open. Let me move that so it's a little bit easier to see. Everybody should be able to see. So there's domain, which is name resolution. There's a web page on 50. There are a couple other ports as well. And then on 100, there are a few interesting ports as well. So, VNC. Somebody likes that. So, Alan, what's VNC?
There's a big vulnerability.
There's a big vulnerability in VNC. Man knows VNC is notorious for being pretty bad. And we're going to exploit an undocumented feature of VNC, not the feature you think. So VNC had a very good authentication model. They said you could use different ways to authenticate. You could choose a way, and one of those ways was no authentication, and the client could choose any of those options. So if you wanted to take control of a VNC server, you could just say, even though it had a password set, you could say, hey, would you like to use no authentication? And it would go, sure. So that's not the specific vulnerability we're looking at. So what we are looking at is we're going to have a look at the wireless router. And this is the wireless router. And you can see the brand, and you can see the make. It is a DAC 1350 from D-Link. It says admin, and it's got a password. And so we're going to need to log into it because we want to see what's on there. I'm going to jump ahead and say my goal is I want to actually work out what the admin password is, because people tend to use one password in lots of different places. That's very, very, very common. So you go like, okay, well, a fully patched Mac machine is probably okay with security. I see it's got VNC, so maybe I can get the password somewhere else. I can maybe find out who owns the MacBook, buy him a couple drinks, and get him to tell me what his favorite password is. But let's try and log in here. So we know Bazinga is a password we've already used. So if we try that and we hit login, it says, do you want to save this password? No, it's not the right password, so I don't want to save it. The password is error. That's very useful as well. So clearly, we don't have the right password. So we could guess a lot, and we could spend time guessing all the iterations. It doesn't have brute force protection. But I'm going to do a little bit of web application testing 101. There is a fantastic website called OWASP, or it's an organization that, basically if you want to get into web application testing or application testing from a security perspective, they've got guides, they've got frameworks, they've got lots of fantastic stuff. My router login bypass is going to come straight from some of their slides. Have done basic checks for common issues like the OWASP top 10. And that's the most common mistakes made by developers. You can look for those mistakes using, a lot of tools like static code analysis, which is when you take a code, you put it into another application that hopefully doesn't have any bugs, and it tells you what's bad, what's good. I've mentioned already the exposed administration interfaces. Am I checking all input and output in my application? That's against blacklists or whitelists or types. That's a very important thing. So when you are an attacker and you find a way to break an application, you want to then try and make it do what you want. You need to try essentially inject commands. But if you're trying to inject commands into, say, a field that is a telephone number field, and the person's only accepting numbers, it's very hard coding in purely numbers. And if it's only 10 digits long, it's very hard to write any functioning program or manipulate a program in only 10 characters. So that's an example of not validating the actual information that's going in, but just setting a type to it. So one other little point on the testing bit is client side is for performance and server side is for security. So whenever you have any information coming into your applications, you can do client-side validation to make sure that information is correct on the client, but that's only for performance. If you trust anything from a client, you're probably going to have a bad day. You need to validate it for accuracy to make sure that it's the right information when it hits the server and not trust the client. Essentially, anyone who has a client can control that fully, even if it's a phone or anything along those lines. So I'm going to go to the next one and do a quick, very, very quick tutorial on SQL injection. So SQL injection, how does SQL injection work? Who's ever done a database query? So most of you. So this is very, very, very straightforward. I'm going to jump to this side. So here's a basic login. This is the example they give in the most basic of forms to try to explain it to someone who maybe hasn't dealt with a database before. But you have a table with users, and it'll go select star from users where the login is equal to whatever you've put into the login, and the password is equal to the password. So it'll find a row where the username is equal to something specific that you've given it, and the password is equal to that. And if you've provided a valid username and password, that's the row, and that's the user you'll log in as. So and here's the basic SQL, select star from users, where login equals whatever the form is submitted for the user, and the password is equal to the password. When you do SQL injection, you're basically trying to modify that select statement. And here's an example they give. It says backtick or 1 equals 1 dash dash. The dash dashes are comments, and the backtick says at the end of that specific variable. So when you put the password as anything, literally you type in anything, not just the word anything. It doesn't have any magic powers when you say anything. But the top one, it says, it changes the statement to select star from users where the username is blank, or where 1 is equal to 1. When is 1 equal to 1? Always. Okay, so, and then comment out where the password is equal to anything. So basically you're going to end up selecting the first user, and it's going to match on the first user in the user table. Who's normally the first user in the user table? Admin. Okay, so that's a silly example. So let's just try that. This will never work. Is what I'll tell you the story. Another tangent. So we're going to do backtick or 1 is equal to 1 dash dash, and this is you're going to have to trust me that I'm typing the right thing in, and it logs me in. So I'm like, fantastic, I'm logged in without the password. This vulnerability is what's called a 0-day vulnerability. There is no patch from the vendor available to fix this, and I reported it in 2014, so I'm not holding out hope that they're going to fix it. They just discontinued the hardware, but the reality is you'll have vulnerabilities like this where people still have the hardware, they haven't replaced it because their router or whatever still works, and it's literally 101. So I reported this vulnerability, but I didn't discover it. We were giving this example to students that we were teaching. We said this is the basic SQL injection, and the one student put up his hand, and he was a big burly guy who was in the military, and he didn't really work with computers. And he's like, yes, it works on my router here. And I said, no, I assumed he'd done something wrong. Went and looked, and actually, it was a really a classic example of SQL injection. You can't find a similar example. You can get far more detailed on those injections, but now that we are in here, what would we do? Anybody got any suggestions? Bearing in mind we want to try and get the admin password. Well, we can change the password, but we want to get the password. We already can log in. So if we change the password, we lose the old password. I'm curious to see what the password is. If I go to maintenance, I can look around. Here's the admin password and start out.
Inspect elements.
Yeah. So a lot of people just hide those. So let's try that. Users don't have right clicks. Actually, strangely enough, I don't seem to have a right click. Let me grab the mouse. So I can Chrome. Actually, somehow my right click doesn't work yet. Oh, sorry.
F12.
Command Shift C. So Command Shift C. It went boink. So I'm sure we can view, inspect.
View developer at the bottom.
View developer. Yeah, this mouse. View source. Okay. So we can't inspect for some reason. It's not getting there. We could look for the source, and we could find admin, and unfortunately, it's not there. So that's a bust. Any other ideas?
But I'm sure with the development tools you can actually change that input type.
You can change the input. You can set the password, but it's unfortunately when they display it in the browser to you, they actually are hashing out the password or starring it out. They're not actually showing you the real password. It would be great if they did. I know we're a little pressed for time, so I'm going to jump to the next one, which is generally they go, okay, well, we've got a system. It's great. We know it's nice and it's not nice and secure, but we've done as much as we can. But whenever we want to back up stuff, we back it up in a way that we can restore it. And if we encrypt it and then we restore it, then that's going to be hard. So let's just back it up in clear text. So you can go to the firmware and system and say, here we go, save configuration. and save some configuration, and you go into the configuration, and it's got all your your bits and pieces. And if we have a look, we're going to look for admin, because that's the user we're looking for. And there we go, Big Bang Theory 1. Okay, so this is, we're jumping ahead a bit, but essentially, yeah, so we've got Big Bang Theory 1 out of that as a potential password. So the big questions are, has this guy stored his secrets securely? And how? And the questions as testers are, how are you storing your secrets? Are you storing them in secure places? Are you keeping them out of bad people's hands? A little more detail is where are your secrets stored? Who can access your secrets? How are your secrets stored? Are they strongly encrypted? I had another wireless router where they did. I think it's basically character mapping. So they or character substitution. So like they shift. I think Caesar shift is the technical term. I forget. But essentially, A mapped directly to another letter, and by inputting a few different passwords backing up the config, you could work out what the shift pattern was, and you could very basically, just using your head or an Excel spreadsheet, decrypt their stuff. So encryption shouldn't be reversible. So often your session to an application is a token. It's a cookie. It's a value that you've given. If it's only 3 characters long, do you think somebody's going to guess that? They'll be able to brute force and guess and get enumerated through sessions. Sometimes what's very common is people will use the account number. They will trust that every user is legitimate, and when they query an account number, they're meant to. So you can enumerate through account numbers or file details. It's brute forceable or predictable tokens are a bad problem. Your tokens or any of your security, it shouldn't be predictable, and hopefully it shouldn't be reversible. In this case, it wasn't even encrypted. So who's got onto VNC? Alan, you don't have the VNC client. Okay, so this one is an interesting quirk because I'm going to say stop at this point in time, and I'm going to show you. This guy, does he use the same credentials everywhere? We're going to say yes. This is going to be an interesting one. I've got a VNC client here. So VNC is a remote control client, and if I connect, it's going to. Oh, it's obviously a live demo, so it's not going to connect at the moment. Did somebody else connect? I'm just going to check to make sure that the box is still up. 112, so we're going to connect to it, and we're going to double click, and it's going to say connection to server, continue, and we need the password. And does anybody remember the password? No, it's a Big Bang Theory 1. And that's going to give us remote VNC. And this is the actual built into the operating system VNC. It's a little bit blurry, but it's asking for a username and a password. So anybody got a username and a password? So Sheldon's is a good option. Anybody else? But I'm going to tell you we're running short of time. Bob. Bob. It says Bob's iMac. So Bob is a good username and password. Bazinga's wrong. Big Bang Theory 1 is also wrong. Big Bang Theory 2 is wrong. It's actually surprisingly enough, it's the exact same password as the router. So we just to show you a little trick now with the router. This wireless router, if we go back to it, we try to reload the connection to the wireless router, and we try to log in. What the password we got was Big Bang, and then Theory, and 1. Try to log in. It says password is error.
Someone changed the UK.
So no, the password hasn't changed. There's a quirk with VNC. The protocol limits passwords to 8 characters. So actually the backup of that config, the password is actually Big Bang Theory without the 1, but the way they store their data, they've appended the 1. And you can use that as a positive test for connecting to VNC. So you can use Big Bang Theory 1, you can use Big Bang Theory pineapples, you can use anything past 8 characters gets ignored. So, and you think this is only VNC? It was an issue with Hotmail as well for quite a while that they truncated your passwords. So the potential lesson out of this is that you should do positive and negative testing. I'm just going to log in quickly. So Bob and Big Bang Theory. Okay. So there it's logged in, and we're nicely remote controlling this machine. But to go back to the slides, and my clicker is all the way over here. So is the guy using the same credentials everywhere? Will the compromise of a system, one system give an attacker access to all other systems? Who uses the same password for multiple systems that they've built? Yes. So I'm sure most people. That is one of the easiest ways to jump from systems or applications. They use the same, who uses the same like authentication key across multiple applications without verifying the source application. So an API, if an API gets a signed token saying this is a legitimate signed token, it'll probably process the request regardless of the source. People don't test sources. So the attempted lessons out of this one is positive and negative testing matters. So the classic example is we got information out of our system saying that the backed up password was Big Bang Theory 1, and we didn't test to actually see, we could have just logged out and logged back in to test to see, is the information we're getting out actually the right information. We tested against another system which wasn't actually performing the correct validation. So we validated against a third-party system to make sure that our information was correct. But in reality, there's no link between the two. And that's something that might not be applicable in your worlds, but it's often very true. People make assumptions that when I test my whatever scenario against this system, if it gives me a good result, that's perfect. But they're basing it on false information or false assumptions from another system. And that's where it also loops back into the authorization. It loops back into any testing you do. If there's you're assuming that everything works correctly, and if you give the right information, you get the right result. Things can go horribly wrong. The negative testing, but I can't stress enough, when you assume something should happen or something shouldn't happen a certain way, but you don't test it, you can't actually have any confidence in that. Then a bit of a breakaway from this contrived example is authorization. I don't know if any of you guys doing your testing, you said, hi, user A logs in, they query their statement, their balance is correct, fantastic. Who tests to see if they can query user B's balance and to see if they get any information or an access denied? Most people do only positive testing. They don't see, okay, can I query somebody else's data? They only check for their own data. You come across it in a lot of web applications where everything works as long as you don't do anything malicious, and as soon as you do something malicious, there are no controls in place to block that. One of the most obvious ones is they say, well, user A can't access user B's statement, that's fine, but they don't, when you log in, if you're flagged as an admin, you can access admin functionality. The menus appear. But if you're not an admin, the menus don't appear, but they don't actually secure the admin functionality themselves. Just a bit of a tangent again. Graceful handling of errors. One of the banks had a one-time PIN system which only consisted of numbers and just direct object access reference. When you went in and you put in a one-time PIN that included letters, it would throw an error at you. It would work. It would say, you can't proceed, this is not correct. However, the back-end system errored out into a state where it would proceed because there was no wrong pin. It broke rather than, the verification broke rather than returning a negative, this is the wrong pin, because the number was wrong. It returned a different error code, which they weren't checking for. So if you manually went to the proceed with transaction step or page, it would then proceed. So you didn't have to have the one-time pins at all for that banking application. And that was only like 3 years ago. They just worked, they were testing for positive and negative, but not errors. What would happen in an error state, which was different. So that's my little example and walkthrough of how easy it is to hack something. You don't actually have to have too much information. You don't actually have to have a lot of savvy and knowledge. You just need to poke around, find what it does, what the bits and pieces are of a system. Do a bit of research, work out that specific, if you guys have more time, that specific vulnerability is on the internet for that wireless router. It's been published, it exists. When people do various frameworks, the classic one is WordPress. They install WordPress, they have their site up and running. When they start deploying new code or new updates to their website, they never check to see if the WordPress framework they're deploying to is still secure. There's a lot of the frameworks people use, over time, the vulnerabilities are discovered, but people only check on the initial deployment whether or not they're on the latest and greatest version in terms of security patching. So I suppose, I'm going to open up to just any general questions. I know this was a bit confusing running through it, and we had some technical difficulties, but any questions?
What are some good rules for passwords?
So generally, and this is not necessarily the view shared by my own organization, my personal view is longer is always better, something that's easy to remember but hard to guess. So if Bazinga is a bad password because it's predictable, it's something that can be worked out. If it's Bazinga frogs 10, nobody's going to work that out. And it's because it's long for a computer to be able to brute force that or guess that. The number of iterations it has to go through to guess that are far more than a shorter password, just because more combinations to try. So I would say a good password would be a really, really long one. Fair enough. Your typically, just the one caveat on that is biometrics are often touted as the secure alternative to remembering passwords. However, something to bear in mind is when their biometrics are compromised or cloned, you can't change those. So, your fingerprints, so the classic one is the new Samsung S8, there's iris checking, and we walk past the shop at the waterfront, and the guy says, most secure biometrics ever. And I'm like, yeah, you could probably fool it with like a clever photo. And he's like, no, definitely not. And I think it was like 6 hours later, I sat down on my desk and there was an article on them fooling it with a contact lens and a photo. So it's and you can't change it. But it also depends on who's after you. I mean, if they can, if it's governments, then you probably got bigger problems than worrying about your fingerprints being cloned. So it's fantastic to store all your passwords in a place. Storing it online, it becomes you're exposing yourself to additional risk because it's online and you're trusting they've done everything right. There's a guy called Tavis Manley from Google Project Zero who regularly breaks antivirus programs, but he's also had to go at a few of the password managers. I think LastPass specifically, the add-in for the browser, you could pretend to be a site and ask for the username and password, even though you weren't that site, and it would send you the username and password. So anything that does anything automatically gives another program your username and password. If it can be tricked, it's going to be a challenge. So it depends once again on your scenario. I would say definitely. I personally prefer an offline password manager. I use KeyPass for storing all my passwords, so it's less likely to be compromised. I can send a copy off to Google and somebody have to hack into my Google Gmail, which is two-factor protected, and they've got some smart analytics on your login behavior. And then they still have to know or have access to the key and the password to get into that. It's not as user-friendly, Security is generally a trade-off between usability and usability and more secure. Everybody says the most secure computer is one in a concrete block at the bottom of the ocean, but you can't reuse it, so it's tricky. Any other questions? Yeah?
Second factor authentication, is it possible to remotely break it?
So second factor, yes, depending on how it's implemented, anything can be broken. Classically is bypassing it. So there'll be scenarios where second factor is bypassable. Typically, if it's done well, there'll be a unique key. So your applications that read your Google stuff for you, they don't have two-factor authentication. Your device, if you've got a Google phone or an Android phone, your device won't ask for the second factor every time after it's been initially authenticated. There's certain credentials that have been placed there. So two-factor all the time, where the seed files for those that second factor are generated by you and no one else knows them, would be great. But that seed has to be given to the server side as well. So there's a fighter jet that the Chinese have developed, which looks remarkably like the Americans, who had many years ahead of them. And the contractors, the military contractors, were hacked by an unknown organization. Everybody says it's Chinese because they suddenly had this airplane. But they didn't go, they went after specifically a company called RSA that does those all secure tokens, and they compromised them and got all the seed files, and then the algorithm to generate the actual numbers is known. So they just have the seed files and they had to just associate them with which user. So two-factor by itself, just those numbers, is fallible for sure. If it's two-factor plus something in your mind, so if you have that number plus a password or something in your head, that doesn't have to change because it's augmented with something that does change. That something you have, like a number on your phone plus a password in your head, that's probably the most secure.
And then also in regards to, I'm not sure if you know about YubiKeys, which are generated passwords, if we put it that way.
Yeah. So once again, it's really nice. They're very good, easy to use because you don't have to type this number, remember the password. You can plug it in, either use it as a certificate or push the button and it'll put in your one-time PIN. Fantastic. It's really nice to use, but it's like encrypted email. It's fantastic, but it's a little bit harder to use than not using it. So people tend to not use it. I mean, public key encryption for emails has been around for yonks, but there's such a small uptake just because it requires a little bit of key management. With most secrets or passwords, it's all about how the keys are managed. You can have the best encryption in the world, and it's only in your head. But if somebody comes with a socket wrench and hits you on the head a few times, you're going to tell them the password. So it's not that secure. So it depends on the how it's stored, what protections are in place around that storage. Most sort of hacks are more authentication bypasses, or simply asking people for their credentials.
What repercussions are there besides like reputational or whatever? Especially like in South Africa specifically, for companies getting their databases leaked or usernames and passwords leaked.
So
it seems like there isn't really a.
I would tend to agree in the South African context. South African people are used to crime without consequences. So South African's banking systems, for example, are ahead. We're more geared for prevention rather than there being consequences. So you would rather prevent somebody from breaking into a bank account than in the States, which they'll make it a great user experience where you don't have to. When you walk up and you want to use your payment card at Burger King, they're like, oh, you want to pay? Swipe, and you swipe your card. You don't give them a PIN, you don't sign, they don't see the card. They're like, oh, great, yeah. Because if you're going to commit crime for $20 worth of a burger meal, you're going to get arrested. They assume that you're not going to do that because the consequences are real. Whereas in South Africa, it's more about prevention, and we accept that things are going to go wrong. My own personal opinion, there's a classic example, Paygate got taken. They were using Windows 2000 servers. I was working at MasterCard at the time, and I got access to the forensic report, and they were doing terrible things. There's a payment card industry standard which they should have been certified against, but they weren't at the time, and essentially the entire database was compromised. They're still a functioning company doing really well because they're contributing to society. If Woolworths got hacked and people are like, oh, I'm never going to go shop at Woolworths, and they're like, oh, it's a bit cold. Oh, that's a nice jersey. They're not going to stop supporting Woolworths because they've got crappy IT security. Not that they do. They've got decent IT security. Should be bolstered sometime soon. It's really we accept like, oh, that went wrong. That money disappeared. It's more about customer service, and people will leave a company because the follow-up isn't good. So if you bank with F&B and somebody steals money from your account, but F&B puts the money back in the next day, and you don't have to worry about it. You're like, oh, I got hacked, but the money was back yesterday. I mean, who hasn't had fraud on their credit card? If you've traveled internationally, especially, you've been to a few restaurants, you're like, oh, there were some fake charges, but my bank sorted it out and didn't influence my life. You accept that it's happened, it's going to happen again, but as long as it doesn't hurt your lifestyle, you're okay with it. It's
Does that change quite a bit about what you do? So instead of trying to find security holes and stuff, you rather look at ways to catch people if they have that. So the one is looking to see that you have a record of what's happening, and the other is to stop people.
So I would say knowing what happened, and then with the intent of taking it to court or trying to catch the person. I think we want to know what's happening before it escalates to something that's really bad. Somebody hacks my website, that example of the airplane website. I take control of the airline's website. They don't mind. I know lots of companies that have had their websites hacked, and they've had adverts injected into it, so somebody's making revenue of ads. It doesn't impact. Nobody really notices. They sort it out. It's not the end of the world. However, if that had changed to their clients' usernames and passwords to the internet banking being stolen, that's the impact. So you want to make sure that you've got enough information to cut off any attack before it becomes serious. Phishing emails, we block them, probably 99.9% of them before they come in. So we're still being attacked, but we are able to respond to the information that we know what phishing emails generally look like and bad people, bad sources look like. We can respond, which is blocking them before they come in. The other ones that come in, we have to have additional controls in to check to make sure that if something then goes wrong, something gets through the first layer, we can respond again. We've got information to respond. I suppose what keeps most security people up at night is not knowing what's happening in a certain area. You're like, well, that's a big, I don't know. Something could be going on there. I really just don't know. And if something does go wrong, I don't know what went wrong, so I can't stop it next time. That's the scariest thing. It's like, well, if you were at home and suddenly there was a burglar inside your house, and then they disappear, and you look and all the windows are closed, all the doors are closed, there's nothing broken. That's the feeling that security guys have. They're like, well, somebody could be inside right now. I don't even know. Just stuff disappearing. If I had a maid, I'd blame her. But but we've got devs, so we'll blame the devs now.
Have you had any errors or you've running against other
We had one moment at a company where someone senior executive. It's like, there was a message about Anonymous, we are Legion on my screen, but I closed it and then I lost connectivity into my computer because I was remote again. Drove to the office, yanked out cable, everything. Thankfully, it was a website he had visited previously that had been hacked, and when he logged in remotely, it refreshed the page and showed the anonymous message. But he didn't remember that. So there was a lot of going through forensics, you're like, there's nothing wrong here, there's nothing wrong. And thankfully, when I started actually going to going timeline through what could have happened, hit that website, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, it's not actually something. I've responded to companies where stuff has gone seriously wrong, and it's a lot of the time you're guessing because you're coming up with hypothesis. Same as testing. You're like, well, what happens if somebody does this? What's the result going to be? Is there any evidence that it happened that way? How can I make sure that I can gather that information next time it goes wrong if I currently am not seeing that information, so that we can, we know what's going on next time. I suppose there's a lot of correlations between pure testing and security testing. It's just, security testing is seen as a non-functional feature.
The cards, I think it was like in 2010, they released the new cards with NFC functionality. What's your opinion on, let's say, NFC security? Because nowadays, phone tablets, you're able to receive and send data via NFC on a phone, which basically the cards, you don't even require to enter in a PIN when doing
You can actually play with the FMB app. If you have an NFC in the phone.
I love it. It's nice and convenient. From a security perspective, I think it's scary to the mind where you go, okay, I just touch this and they can take the money. But if I get pickpocketed in there, they just take the money out of my pocket. There's no history, I don't know who's taking my money. With the NFC stuff, for them to be able to receive that transaction, there's a whole back end of the system. So I feel a little more comfortable that if somebody walks past with a scanner and suddenly I see there's a charge for Johnny's haircuts, I'm like, okay, well, go to my bank. Who charged this? It traces back. So there's more accountability with NFC than there is with cash. So I like the fact that there's a limit where you have to enter a PIN, so there's some security. As long as I'm not liable, I'm happy. So the switch from signing to chip and PIN is very much a liability transfer, or at least that's the way it was sold to the banks and has been to some degree. Whereas with you sign for your credit card transaction, the onus is on them to prove that the signature is in fact you. So the onus is on them if there's fraud to make sure that it was the right signature, and if it wasn't, it's their problem. You weren't involved in the transaction. The onus is now moved on to you with your PIN. You're the guardian of your PIN. Nobody else is meant to see it, and it's not like the cameras everywhere and you're entering it all over the place. It's meant to be more secure, that PIN, but if there's any fraud on that card, it's your problem, because if the PIN was present at the same time. Because all our cards still swipe. It's purely a risk liability transfer now. They are harder to clone those chip cards, but it's not. It's more expensive to clone those chip cards, but they can still be cloned. NFC are little applications actually running on those chips. So potentially, if the person wrote it badly, there could be ways to exploit it. There's a security researcher in Cape Town who had a look at the My City cards and had a bit of a play to see what you could do on those cards. And there's a lot of information that you would expect not to see visible. So you could walk past someone and read information from their card, but you can't steal money. It's not that easy. Yeah. Great. I think I'm way over time. Like a little bit? No? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? No, I'm joking. Thank you.